everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're here today talking with one of our, I should say, platinum sponsors for the Seller Velocity Conference, which once again is May 1st and 2nd in New York. I'm with Ephraim Ausch of Tactical Logistic Solutions. Ephraim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you. Excited for May 1st.
I know. Spring is almost here.
That's it.
Hopefully you have some spring in your step once the snow clears off the streets of New York City.
Yeah, it's almost gone. We're going to have a warm week, so I'm excited for that.
Oh, nice. Okay. And you're Brooklyn based, correct? Yeah. I used to live in Brooklyn, for those who don't know me so well. So interesting personal note. We're looking forward to this year in particular. This is our second time doing a 2-day event. And the last one went really, really well. I wanted to talk to you about your core business and, why anyone should even, do you need a 3PL? Why should I have it? Could it help my business? We'll get into the pluses and minuses of having one, not having one, and so forth. But the fee structure is constantly changing, right? You must get this question all the time in terms of, should I have a 3PL, or do you get people that are on the fence? You have to tip them over. How does it usually start?
So, yeah, I usually try to talk about my background where I went wrong, because I was a seller for 7 years prior to this position. And my biggest issue was having my own warehouse. Because when you put that in mind, it's like, it's your rent, it's your utilities, it's all the people involved with it, all these supplies you have to buy and all that. And a lot of people don't put that in mind when they look at I just have my own operation. They don't put it together as like, hey, you have to take all these costs, right? Compared to your profit, obviously. And then you see am I being profitable running my own operations? Am I not being profitable owning my own operations? And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's not the warehouse size. Sometimes it's the PPC that I'm increasing, or it's something else on Amazon. I'm spending a lot of money, but the logistics piece is a big chunk of an expense for a private label seller. So question is how you could tweak that to make that more efficient. So how I set up our rate structure was very defined and very clear. So it's set prices per container or per pallet, per carton. So profitability wise, you know exactly when you sign up with our 3PL, you know exactly what you're going to be paying for. You know exactly your cost per unit, and that's what I'm all about. Because what I went wrong when I had my own operations is I had my own warehouse, spent a lot of money there. I was very seasonal, so I had my warehouse months that I was losing my pants because I didn't need that warehouse at that time. I had employees who were really good employees, so I had to keep them all year round, even though I didn't have so much work for them in the off season. Then I decided I'm done with that because it's not good for me, so I outsourced it to a co-pack, where they packed all my stuff, they took care of everything, and that gave me a ton of more time in my day. I was able to grow more on Amazon versus being focused on the logistics side. And that's also a value add, where if you outsource all your operations, automatically you have more focus on focusing on what you do best. And what do Amazon sellers do best? Not logistics. They do best by coming up with product, innovating product, selling product, all that. That's where they're good at. And I outsourced it, and I realized that there were so many different charges where I get charged where it's this fee, that fee, all these different fees where I had no idea how to even calculate it, what's my cost per unit. So that's what inspired me to do what I do right now. Is I'm all about profitability, because that's where I went wrong with my Amazon business. And I want to make sure that people don't make the same mistakes I did. So that's basically my starting conversation with someone, is if he doesn't have a 3PL and he has his own operations. Then you have sellers that are more newer into the market, where they set everything into Amazon right away. Where you go wrong with that is Amazon's fees are insane.
Right. I was going to ask you about using an Amazon partner carrier versus not, in terms of what are the SLA, what are the KPIs or SLAs, service level agreements on, do they hold themselves to that if you go with Amazon's preferred partner carrier? The fees fluctuate too, right?
So the obvious answer is no. So that's obvious that we all are aware of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there's two things. One thing is, like I mentioned earlier, is like sending everything to Amazon is where you could get crushed on storage.
Sure.
Your IPI, inventory performance index, gets shot by that because you have too much inventory, selling too much product. And then the second part
Yeah.
is actually getting product into Amazon. Using Amazon partner carriers is how the Amazon system works is if I, as a third party carrier, comes in with load delivering goods, I'm not covered by Amazon's insurance. So they don't want to have my carrier sitting in their yard for a long period of time. Anything that
Right.
goes wrong, they're liable because their insurance doesn't cover it. And then it becomes trouble. So all third party carriers have to do a live unload. Meaning, so like you have an appointment, you come in,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon has to unload you, and then the trucker leaves. Versus Amazon partner carriers, they could park their trailers there. So they just pick up goods from multiple different locations or truckloads from one location. They come to Amazon's yard, they drop the trailer in the yard, and then the driver leaves and he goes to pick up more loads. So that truck could sit in Amazon's yard. I've seen 3 weeks. The popular one is a week or two. Peak season, usually it's more like 2 weeks, please.
Right.
So
Q4.
Q4. So when
Yeah.
you're running out of stock or you're low in inventory, and you don't have that 2 week lead time where you can wait that out. That's where you could really go wrong and screw your business, where you run out of stock, you have to spend a ton of money to get a PPC,
Mm-hmm.
getting back your ranking where you were. So that's basically the difference between using an Amazon partner carrier and using a non-partner carrier is the live unloads versus not live unloads.
Yeah. I mean, and you guys offer set fees, right? I mean, do you encounter people that don't understand how much they should be paying for storage, for third party storage?
Um,
And they don't do the math, they don't run the numbers, and they don't understand
right, definitely. I mean,
like hidden fees or minimums or maximums, that kind of thing. Yeah.
right. So I do what I preach. So, a lot of my content around the year is all about Amazon storage fees, how it affects you, how many months you should send directly to Amazon, how many shouldn't, what's the safe zone where you're paying less money going directly to Amazon when not. So the break even point is 2 months. So if you're sending a product to Amazon, it's going to sell within an 8 week period. You're good to go. You don't need a 3PL. But if you really don't want to be like on time with everything and you get risk, there's like a shipment is delayed on sea, anything that could go wrong, you have just in time inventory, that's risky. So what most healthy sellers I've seen done is 2 months in Amazon, 2 months in a 3PL, 2 months on the water, and then usually 2 months of production if they have all year round products. So that's how they have the cycle is. If
Okay.
they wake up one morning and their competitor ran out of stock and they picked up a lot of sales, they still have 2 months worth of inventory in a 3PL where they could get transferred over to Amazon pretty quick. And
Yeah.
they have two more months on the water. So you never really have the chance of running out of stock. That's the healthiest way that I've seen with
Right.
sellers that are really know what they're doing.
That's the optimal functionality and positioning. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table, right? If
Right.
you don't have that arranged, organized, and set up reliably. Um, you've mentioned to me in the past that you guys focus a lot on communication, being responsive. You've got your own portal for that. Have you heard people working with other companies where communication's been a real problem? They haven't been as responsive. And so you tailor your communication accordingly?
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously a big thing in logistics is communication. Like not always it is about
sure.
price. Obviously price is a factor, but it's
Yeah.
basically they know like I'm relying on a company to handle all my stuff. That means my livelihood, my business, my life is sitting in somebody's hands, right? And if I don't trust them
Mm-hmm.
100% or I don't have proper communication, what happens is they start freaking out. And that's where it triggers them to like, I need to find a better solution. I need to find a better company. So how in the modern world where most companies is, they have account manager that manages everything, right? Just like you have an Amazon, like you have an account manager that technically oversees everything. But how we
Mm-hmm.
changed it around a couple of years ago was we have every single department of our company, customer service rep, that can handle
Okay.
multiple different accounts. So when they have a question about that specific division, they get an answer because that person is actually sitting with that team right now as we speak.
Right.
So automatically the response rate
So
went up.
like a true account manager, not even so
Exactly.
much customer service rep, but like management. a manager.
Right. So like if
Yeah.
somebody has a receiving question, there's an account manager for receiving questions, and that account manager actually sits with the receiving team. So she
Hmm.
could just ask like, hey, what's going on with the shipment? Because she's standing or he's standing next to the person that actually processed that shipment. So
Right.
automatically our response times is way, way quicker on that.
Nice. Nice. And in terms of changing from one 3PL to another, is that laborious? Is it cumbersome? Is it not so bad now as it was a few years ago? What does that process look like?
It's
Like onboarding a new client for you?
it's very simple for us. It's like signing up in our account. We have like a YouTube tutorial, a SOP where you can just see how everything works. Like it's very little. It's a very simple system that we created, that we built. Um,
Hmm.
it's basically, I love simplicity. So it's basically 3PLs for like, anyone that knows anything about logistics a little bit will understand. It's a very straightforward system.
Okay.
Um, and that's also a lot of other companies out there that are still stuck in the old fashioned ways, like they have Excel sheets, sending over Excel sheet. This is the inventory, things like that. Like
Right.
I'm here because when I was a seller, it was like I wake up 2 o'clock in the morning and I have anxiety that I need my shipment to arrive in time, and I need to know if it got received. I need to know where the order's up to. Like I want to be able to know that at any given time. Like that's how the world is today. So they have a login at any time. They can see the status where their order's up to. So that's what I was trying to replicate what I wanted as a seller and what
Right.
I'm doing now as a service.
And since you communicate so well, you're open for people to call at 2 a.m. when they're stressed out and anxious, right?
Yeah. I mean,
About a type of problem. I mean, you've been doing this, is it fair to say, longer than most other companies, longer than every other company in the 3PL space?
I don't
I
know if
mean, how
I've
many
been,
years?
yeah, I don't know if I've been longer. I've been doing it. It's going to be my seventh year in
Right.
tactical.
Several years now.
But I've
Yeah.
been in this space since 2010. I mean, so like I was a
Yeah.
seller in 2010. So I've
Right.
known a lot of people in the industry for many years. I've seen people come
Hmm.
and go. Like, I mean, you're in the same boat as me. You know all about it. You're in the industry for years. Um,
Yeah.
so
Back in 2010, I was reviewing seller accounts like yours
exactly,
at Amazon. So if you go back that far, yeah.
exactly. So
You must get all kinds of questions. I mean, is it mostly just fear of fees, or what other kind of current trend pain points do you hear from people when you go to events? You know, you're going to get a lot of questions at seller velocity, right? What kind of questions are you anticipating?
So I think the most questions that I get is a lot of people don't really understand the Amazon fees.
Okay.
So there's so many new fees that are coming in. There's regular storage fees. There's peak season
Hmm.
storage fees. There's now low level inventory fees. That's a brand new charge that Amazon will penalize you for having low stock on Amazon. There's fees for having stuff more than 22 weeks. They used to be 26 weeks. So there's a lot of fees that keep on changing, and Amazon
Hmm.
has it by cubic foot. And a lot of people don't know how to really calculate, like, how do I calculate cubic foot? Like, if I send in a pallet to Amazon, how much cubic feet is that? So, I do all that, when I have these conversations, is like explaining to them, like, hey, for example, one pallet is equivalent to 80 cubic feet. Now, if Amazon charges you, let's say the new rate would be 78 cents a cubic foot, that will come out to be around $62 a month for one pallet. And then in peak
Hmm.
season, it's going to be $192 per pallet. So now when you're looking at sending in a truckload or 2 truckloads or a few containers into Amazon, and you start getting to the 100, 120 pallet count, technically in our eyes, how we look at it as
Hmm.
a picture, it could be thousands of dollars in storage. And that's where a lot of sellers make that mistake. I've had now a story with one of my larger customers, where last year Amazon's system of getting products into Amazon was broken as of mid-November. You couldn't get appointments. People were reselling appointments. It was like a whole
Right.
business. I'm sure you heard back then about it.
Yeah, of
And
course.
and
Hmm.
and what happened was a lot of sellers were paranoid. I don't want to repeat myself this year. I don't want to lose my season. So I had this very large seller. They do around 150 million on Amazon a year. Very large. Um, and they made sure that all their products that they're planning to sell in November and December was received at Amazon beginning of October. So basically, the whole
Okay.
Q4, they want to make sure they're fully in stock as of October, the first week of October. What happened was
Sure.
that October sales are not amazing for them. They're a very seasonal product.
Okay.
Um, and then November it starts picking up sort of mid-November. So for a month and a half, they paid the peak season storage fees in Amazon and they got crushed. Basically, whatever
Yeah.
profit they were planning to make regularly got
No,
eaten up by all these storage
erased.
fees, like basically
Yeah.
erased. And you talk about a $150
Mm.
million company when 60% of their revenue is done in November and
Mm-hmm.
December, and that's nothing. It's poof, it's gone. The profit of
That's a
that
big
is
number.
just a huge number.
Yeah.
So that's where I try to teach people is like really be careful on how much you're sending in because
Yeah.
Amazon is not a storage facility. They're a distribution center. They want to get product in and ship it out right away. So
Right.
especially
High
in Q4,
turnover.
especially in Q4, it is tough because Amazon is delayed. So you got to be really smart and strategic how you trickling in your product in that you don't get hit with these crazy storage fees.
Yeah. And people might just assume, like, well, we're going to go with an Amazon partner carrier and then forget the details. Like, we want to use one of their partner carriers so that if there's a problem, Amazon will understand that it wasn't our fault,
Right.
right? A lot of sellers just live in fear of random things happening, things going wrong. We see it a lot with what we do every day, but I imagine they fear it on, the storage side, the fee side, or they just aren't prepared for a fee hike. I mean, what's the average amount of time that they give you in terms of advance notice for fee hikes?
So Amazon this year was pretty proactive, I would say, with that. They probably gave out
Okay.
their fee structure. I think it was sometime beginning of December, or end of November for March 1st and April 1st. So they
Right.
actually decreased their rates this year on the
Mm-hmm.
storage side a little bit, not a lot. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a couple of dollars for a
Right.
pallet, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But then they implemented the new fees where if you're running low on stock, you can start paying additional fees. And there's even fees where you're paying $1.10 when a unit shipped. And like if you're selling low margin product where you make $1 or $1.50, there's plenty of sellers that sell a lot of volume
Oh, sure.
and that
Yeah.
just wipes out your profit completely. So it's something
Yeah.
that you really have to like really manage properly in forecasting that you don't fall into that scenario. And I don't know what Amazon is going to do because when you come from peak season where that's November, December, and you go into non-peak season, automatically with the lower level fees, there's going to be around a week or 2 weeks where regardless of what you want to do, you're going to be under the level where you were
Yeah.
back then. So I don't know what they're planning to do with that. I've seen a lot of conversations about it, but Amazon did not come out yet with a response how they're going to tackle going from peak season to off peak season where you don't even have 10,000 units right now on Amazon. You only need 2,000 units because that's how much you move off season. So how is that going to affect that? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what kinds of questions you get at Seller Velocity. So if you're listening to this and watching us talk, you already have a ticket. I'm sure you're already preparing questions for Ephraim to go over. But if you're not sure yet whether or not you're coming to Seller Velocity, you're on the fence, you've probably got logistic questions that he can answer. So I guess what's the maybe number one thing that you hope people will ask you about? And is there a number one thing that you're kind of hoping people don't have to ask you about this coming May? I hate
uh,
to put you on the spot, but just a little teaser because we are recording this 2 months out. So just like prediction, I know it's hard to predict, right?
right,
But just in terms of anticipating what might be coming down the pike, I'm sure you know a good question from a bad question if you want to put it in those terms.
right.
But
So Amazon
business
made,
owners can't make too many mistakes and still make a profit.
right,
So I'm wondering what you're really hoping people do ask you versus what you hope is not an issue.
right. So right now, the big question is Amazon is changing their fees as of March 1st for inbound
Mm-hmm.
placement fees. Meaning to say like till now you were able to manipulate the system to get your products to go to one location instead of multiple locations where that saves you a lot of logistics and trucking costs. That becomes a full violation as of March 1st, where if you do want to go to a single location, you have to pay the inbound placement fee. If you don't want to do that, you're trying to jump the system, you're going to pay penalties
Mm-hmm.
on that. So a lot of people are asking, what's the new loophole, right? Because there's like 9 Yard, there's Nemo Ship, there's Seller Chain, where they all had software where you're able to manipulate to get your product to go to one location instead of multiple locations. So that's everybody's asking right now is like, what's the new loophole? Like, how we can figure that out? Because if you have to send products from California to New Jersey or South Carolina or Florida,
right,
your trucking cost is through the roof. And if you're only sending a couple of pallets because you can't consolidate anymore for one big shipment, obviously LTL is way more expensive than full truckload. So all these questions where I've just been by a couple of events in the past month where people are asking like, what's the new loophole? So there is something in the baking. But right now I don't have that cleared out as a path. So hopefully, by the time May comes around, there's going to be a clear path for that. And if there's no clear path, it's
awesome.
educating them how really to maximize and what to do in certain scenarios. Because Amazon does give you a rebate. If you're sending to further location, you could choose to go local. What's your margins on your product? Maybe you could afford to do a placement fee and go to one location. So there's many different ways how to look at it. If there's no solution for that, how to be the most efficient and still be profitable.
Exactly. Awesome. Great answer.
I'm
glad I asked. Ephraim Ausch of Tactical Logistic Solutions, thanks so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing you in May and everyone else who's going to be showing up, asking you questions in New York, May 1st and 2nd. So I'm sure I'll see you and talk to you again soon.
Yeah,
Have a definitely. Good one.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.